At the celebration dinner I paid for after landing a $250,000 job, my dad clinked his glass and said, "We all know your sister deserved it more, but life isn't fair." My aunt laughed. My mom stayed silent. Even my sister just smirked. I looked around the table I reserved for them, took a deep breath, and said, "You're right. Life isn't fair, especially when I was planning to pay off everyone's debts until now." Then I stood up, took back the envelopes, and walked out, as my sister was still unwrapping what you think she deserved. I, 31M, thought celebrating my new job would bring my family together. Instead, it tore everything apart. Let me start from the beginning. 6 months of grueling interviews, technical assessments, and sleepless nights had finally paid off. Landing a $250,000 senior software architect position at a Fortune 500 company felt surreal, but the salary confirmation email on my phone made it real. My family trickled in one by one. Dad arrived first, his weathered hands adjusting his tie, the same one he wore to every important occasion. Mom followed, offering that practiced smile she'd perfected over years of family gatherings. My younger sister swept in fashionably late, her designer purse catching the ambient lighting. She'd always had expensive taste, even when working part-time retail. Aunt Carol completed our small circle, her laugh already echoing across nearby tables as she settled into her chair. I'd specifically chosen this upscale steakhouse, knowing Dad had mentioned wanting to try it for years, but never justifying the cost. The evening started pleasantly enough. We ordered appetizers, caught up on neighborhood gossip, and I shared stories about my new role. The weight of 5 sealed envelopes in my jacket pocket felt reassuring, each containing checks that would eliminate their various financial burdens. Dad's mortgage had 2 years left. Mom's credit card debt from her medical bills last year still haunted their budget. My sister's student loans were crushing her monthly cash flow. Aunt Carol had been struggling since her divorce settlement ran dry. Tonight was supposed to be about giving back to people who'd supported me through community college, then state university, then my career pivot into tech. At least, that's what I'd believed. The food arrived steaming hot. We were halfway through our main courses when Dad suddenly stood up, wine glass in hand. His face carried that serious expression he wore during his military days, the look that preceded important announcements. He began speaking about family, about success, about how proud he was. The words felt warm initially, washing over me like validation I'd craved since childhood. Then something shifted in his tone. Dad's voice carried across our corner of the restaurant as he declared that while he was happy for my success, everyone at the table knew my sister deserved this opportunity more. He explained how she'd always been the naturally gifted one, the creative mind, the people person who should have landed in corporate leadership. Life simply wasn't fair sometimes, he concluded, raising his glass higher. The words hit like ice water. I sat frozen, fork halfway to my mouth, trying to process what I'd just heard. This was my celebration dinner. My achievement. My moment. Aunt Carol's laughter erupted immediately, that sharp cackle I remembered from childhood gatherings. She nodded enthusiastically, adding her own commentary about how my sister had always been destined for greater things, how natural talent trumped hard work every time. I turned toward Mom, expecting her to intervene, to offer some balance to Dad's assessment. Instead, she continued cutting her steak methodically, eyes focused on her plate. Her silence spoke volumes, not disagreement with Dad's words, but unwillingness to defend them either. My sister's reaction completed the picture. She didn't protest Dad's comparison or redirect the conversation toward my accomplishment. Instead, a small smirk played across her lips as she sipped her wine, clearly enjoying the moment. The restaurant's ambient noise seemed to fade away. Other diners continued their conversations. Servers moved between tables, but our corner felt suspended in time. I looked around at faces I'd known my entire life, people I'd planned to help financially, people who couldn't manage a single supportive word during my celebration. The envelopes in my jacket suddenly felt different, heavier, more significant. I set down my fork and took a deep breath, feeling something fundamental shift inside my chest. My voice came out calmer than expected when I finally spoke. I agreed with Dad completely. Life wasn't fair, especially unfair that I'd been planning to pay off everyone's debts tonight. But circumstances had clearly changed. The table went dead silent. Dad's wine glass froze halfway to his lips. Aunt Carol's laughter cut off abruptly. Mom finally looked up from her plate. My sister's smirk vanished. I stood up slowly, reaching into my jacket to withdraw the 5 envelopes. Each one bore a name written in my careful handwriting. Each one contained a check that would have transformed their financial situations overnight. Dad found his voice first, asking what I meant about debts. His tone had shifted from celebratory to confused, then concerned. I explained calmly. The first envelope contained a check for $47,000, enough to eliminate his remaining mortgage payments. The second held $18,000 for Mom's medical bills. The third contained $31,000 to wipe out my sister's student loans. Aunt Carol's envelope held $12,000 to catch up her rent and car payments. The fifth envelope contained an additional $15,000 I'd planned to split between everyone for emergencies. My sister's eyes widened as she processed the numbers. She started to speak, probably to clarify her earlier reaction, but I continued before she could interrupt. I told them I'd spent months researching their exact debt amounts, calculating payment schedules, even consulting with financial advisors to ensure the gifts wouldn't create tax complications. Tonight was supposed to mark a new chapter for our entire family, financial freedom built on the success they'd helped make possible. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Other restaurant patrons began glancing our way, sensing drama at the corner table. Then I tucked the envelopes back into my jacket. Dad immediately shifted into damage control mode, explaining that he'd simply been making conversation, that family teasing was normal, that I shouldn't take his words so seriously. He reached across the table as if to grab the envelopes. Mom added her voice to his, insisting Dad had just been reflecting on different types of success, that everyone was proud of my accomplishment. Her eyes kept darting toward my jacket pocket. My sister's approach was more direct. She tried to downplay her smirk as nerves, claimed she'd actually been proud but hadn't known how to express it properly. Her hand moved toward mine across the table. Aunt Carol attempted to laugh off her earlier comments, suggesting I was being overly sensitive about harmless family ribbing. But the damage was already done. Their words revealed exactly how they viewed my achievement, as luck rather than effort, as misplaced opportunity rather than earned success. More importantly, their immediate pivots when money entered the conversation showed their true priorities. I pulled out my wallet and placed enough cash on the table to cover everyone's meals plus tip. The gesture felt symbolic, my final financial contribution to family harmony. As I prepared to leave, my sister made one last desperate attempt. She mentioned her student loan payments, how impossible they'd become, how much my help would mean. The irony was staggering. Minutes earlier, she'd smirked at Dad's assessment that she deserved my success more, but now she wanted the benefits of my undeserved luck. I told her maybe she should ask Dad to help instead, since he seemed convinced she was the more deserving child. Then I walked toward the restaurant exit, leaving them with their half-finished meals and sudden financial reality. Update 1. The next morning brought an avalanche of text messages and voicemails. Dad called 6 times before 9 a.m., each message more apologetic than the last. He insisted he'd been misunderstood, that family dynamics were complicated, that we should meet for coffee to discuss things rationally. Mom's approach was subtler but more persistent. She texted throughout the day, sharing family photos from my childhood, reminding me of family vacations and holiday memories. Her underlying message was clear: don't let one misunderstanding destroy decades of family bonds. My sister oscillated between anger and desperation. Her morning texts accused me of being oversensitive and vindictive. By afternoon, her tone had shifted to pleading, detailing her financial struggles and asking if we could meet privately to work things out. Aunt Carol's messages were the most revealing. She seemed genuinely confused about why I'd reacted so strongly to what she called typical family banter. Her worldview apparently included casual cruelty as normal family interaction. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I spent Saturday researching charitable organizations. If I was going to give away $123,000, it should go somewhere meaningful. I found a scholarship fund for first-generation college students from working-class families, kids who understood that success required relentless effort rather than natural entitlement. Sunday brought an unexpected visitor. My sister appeared at my apartment door, eyes red from crying, clutching a handwritten letter. She begged me to read it, to understand her perspective, to reconsider my decision. I invited her inside, curious about her approach. The letter was 3 pages of carefully crafted apology, explaining how family gatherings made her nervous, how she'd always felt overshadowed by my academic achievements, how Dad's words had caught her off guard too. But then she made a crucial mistake. Near the end of our conversation, she suggested we could work out a payment plan for the student loan help. Maybe I could still provide the money, just spread over several months instead of one lump sum. She was still negotiating for the check rather than genuinely understanding why her reaction had been hurtful. I told her the money was going to charity instead. Her mask slipped completely then, revealing the anger underneath her apologetic performance. She accused me of being petty, of punishing the whole family for Dad's poor choice of words, of letting pride destroy family relationships. Her reaction confirmed my decision was correct. Update 2. 2 weeks passed quietly. I started my new job, focusing on learning company systems and building relationships with my team. The salary deposit felt surreal, more money than I'd ever seen in my account simultaneously. Then Mom called with news that changed everything. She'd been talking with my sister, who'd apparently been struggling more than anyone realized. The student loan situation was worse than I'd known. She'd been in forbearance for months, accumulating interest while making minimum payments on credit cards to cover basic expenses. Her retail job barely covered rent and food. But that wasn't the shocking part. Mom revealed that my sister had been planning to quit her job and apply for graduate school. She'd been accepted into a competitive MBA program, but couldn't afford the tuition. Dad's comment about her deserving my success wasn't random family teasing. It reflected their belief that she should be the one with the high-paying career, that my success was somehow taking opportunities away from her natural path. The family dinner hadn't been planned as my celebration. It had been intended as my sister's announcement party for graduate school, but when I'd called about my job offer, they'd shifted the focus to avoid competing narratives. Dad's toast was supposed to acknowledge her upcoming academic achievement, but my success had complicated their script. Mom's revelation recontextualized everything, but it also made their behavior worse. They'd been patronizing me while expecting financial support, treating my achievement as consolation prize while planning to celebrate my sister's next step. I told Mom I appreciated the context, but it didn't change my decision. Their expectations weren't my responsibility. She went silent for several seconds before asking what they were supposed to do now. My sister couldn't afford graduate school without family help, Dad's mortgage payments were straining their budget, and Aunt Carol was facing potential eviction. I suggested they figure it out the same way I'd figured out community college, state university, and career transitions, through planning, sacrifice, and personal responsibility. Mom's tone turned cold. She accused me of abandoning family when they needed me most, of letting money change my values, of choosing pride over love. But I wasn't choosing pride over love. I was choosing self-respect over manipulation. Update 3. A month into my new job, I received an unexpected email from my sister. Not a text message or phone call, but a formal email with the subject line, "Final attempt at communication." She'd written a detailed message explaining her perspective on our family dynamics. According to her version, I'd always been the successful sibling while she'd been the creative one, different paths that were equally valid. Dad's toast had been clumsy but came from a place of trying to balance attention between different types of achievement. She acknowledged that her reaction to Dad's words had been inappropriate, but insisted that my response was disproportionate. Withdrawing financial support punished everyone for one person's mistake, and holding grudges would ultimately hurt me more than anyone else. The email concluded with a proposal. She'd started a GoFundMe campaign to cover her graduate school costs, and asked if I'd be willing to contribute anonymously. This would allow me to help without feeling like I was rewarding their dinner behavior, while still supporting her educational goals. I stared at the message for several minutes, amazed by her ability to reframe the situation. She'd somehow positioned herself as the victim of my overreaction while asking for money through a different channel. But buried in her email was an admission that changed everything. She mentioned that Dad had approached several relatives about contributing to her graduate school fund, explaining that I'd selfishly withdrawn financial support over a minor misunderstanding. She was trying to rally extended family against me while simultaneously asking for my help. That evening, I called my cousin Jake, Dad's nephew, who'd always been straight with me about family politics. He confirmed that Dad had been telling relatives a distorted version of events, painting me as ungrateful and vindictive. Several family members were now viewing me as the problem rather than understanding what had actually happened. Jake's information solidified my decision. This wasn't about one bad dinner conversation. It was about fundamental family dynamics that weren't going to change. I donated the entire $123,000 to the scholarship fund that weekend. The organization sent a thank you letter detailing how the money would support 15 students over the next 3 years, covering tuition, books, and living expenses for kids whose families couldn't contribute to their education. 6 months later, my life has stabilized in ways I didn't expect. The new job challenges me daily, my colleagues respect my contributions, and my financial security feels genuine for the first time. I've made friends who celebrate achievements without qualification or comparison. Family contact has dwindled to holiday cards and brief text exchanges. Dad occasionally sends articles he thinks might interest me, usually related to technology or career advancement. Mom shares updates about neighbors and local news, carefully avoiding mention of money or family tensions. My sister hasn't contacted me since the GoFundMe email. Through social media, I learned she'd managed to gather enough money for graduate school through various sources, including a combination of family contributions, her fundraising campaign, and additional student loans. She started classes this semester and seems to be thriving in the academic environment. Part of me wonders if I made the right choice. Family relationships are complicated, and perhaps I could have handled the situation with more grace or forgiveness. Maybe Dad's toast was genuinely meant to balance attention rather than diminish my achievement. But then I remember the moment when I looked around that restaurant table and saw my family's true reaction to my success. Not celebration, not pride, but resentment masked as philosophical acceptance. They wanted my money more than they wanted to acknowledge my effort. The scholarship fund sends quarterly updates showing how the money is being used. Last month's report included thank you letters from several recipients. Kids working multiple jobs while maintaining perfect GPAs, students who'd never imagined college was financially possible, young adults whose families supported their dreams rather than diminishing them. Reading those letters reminded me why I made the choice I did. Some families celebrate each other's successes unconditionally. Others treat success as a zero-sum game, where one person's achievement somehow diminishes everyone else's potential. I chose to invest in the first type of family, even if they weren't related to me by blood. The restaurant envelopes are still in my desk drawer, empty now, but serving as a reminder of an important lesson. Financial generosity should flow from genuine relationships, not family obligation or guilt. Love shouldn't require payment plans, and celebration shouldn't come with conditions. Life isn't fair. Dad was right about that. But sometimes unfairness works in favor of people who deserve better treatment, better opportunities, and better families than the ones they were born into. I built the career I wanted and found the respect I deserved. The money I'd planned to give away went to people who understood its value rather than people who felt entitled to it. And for the first time in years, that feels exactly right.